welcome to the Soldiers of God Academy. We are doing episode number 2. We're going to talk about a few things, different subjects. We're going to hit some news. We're going to look at our new members. And since the last episode, we've got 2 new members. So I just want to say thank you to them for joining. This is a friend of Nathan's and Jason Cox. He lives in South Africa. I think we found him on Facebook, or we got him in a Facebook group, and he's joined as well, so we appreciate it, and thank you. So let's see, new course sections. So I've had a couple course sections drop in the past 2 weeks. The last one was the digestive and urinary system. Before that is the respiratory system, and a couple of other ones. I suggest everyone read this just to get an understanding of the different body parts. It's kind of building into itself. I'll wrap it up with the cell, and then we'll move away from the biology of the body, and we'll get into the home, the family, the church, and move into a couple other subjects. But for right now, tonight, the reproductive system is going to be open on there. And let's see, sources. So I kind of wanted to touch on some things just to kind of give a biblical perspective on the things that are happening in the world, so we can kind of understand where different news and different motives are going to be coming from different directions. In the geopolitical realm, it comes to different nations, NGOs, companies, all trading money with each other and exchanging information to consolidate power. We want to kind of look at what the different news channels are saying, compare them, and then see how the Bible could help us navigate that. So right now we have InfoWars open, we have Fox News, and I was going to try to open CNN, but they wanted to do the cookies thing, and I didn't want to do that. So we're just going to go with Google, and we will just look for some news. Let's see. So starting off, so if you walk into an airport or a hospital or any public place, most of them will have some sort of mainstream media playing, whether it's CNN or MSNBC. Most of them will be something like that, like ABC. And then if you get some conservative areas, maybe they'll be playing Fox when they walk in, and they're probably taking a hit for that, but they do it just because out of whatever allegiance. There's different angles that they cover on each event, and I think it's pretty interesting just to scroll through every once in a while. I don't really get my news from Fox or MSNBC. I get a lot of news from other sources, independent sources. InfoWars would be part of them. For right now, we're just going to scroll on Fox. Some of the top stories, we got social media flips script on Schumer's voter ID, claim using his own words against him. This is what's so funny is some of this stuff. I mean, I used to scroll through this and look every day, but the more I fill up my brain with spiritual stuff, these people are so temporary, and it's almost silly talking about it. I'm just going to talk about it to give a few angles on some things, because there's some big events happening, some big events coming as well, and I've been talking about those for years, and they're kind of coming to a head right now. So I'd like to just touch on them. If we come across anything interesting, we can talk about it. Trump signs shutdown ending deal. So this is just something where they're vying for finances. The Congress has control of the purse, so they have to all basically go on this PR tour when it comes to them agreeing on how much to allocate for funds, and it's a whole show, and Trump just kind of plays along with it, and kind of sucks to watch, because back in the day, it was maybe a little more fighting going on our side when it came to the congressional members. Now it seems like everyone's basically, anybody that's on our side has basically been purged. Everyone from Marjorie Taylor Greene to a couple of other people. For the past year, he's basically shown himself again to be just a politician. AI development and data centers and all of that's just going to be used to track us. They've already said what their plans for AI is, and it's not a good thing. So the fact that we don't have a president in there that's fighting it, we instead have a president that's just going along with it to try to get power, because he knows that those power brokers will back him. For the first couple months, you get your hopes up for a presidency. I think it's probably out of just immaturity, just being 30, and seeing a new wave come and just hoping for the best, but it never turns out like that. They always overpromise and underdeliver, so this is just another example of that. I can name 20 things off the bat where he's just totally flipped it and messed up, and it just shows we're not in any type of winning position. We're in a position of playing defense like always, and it's not going to change with a president, let alone if he's not a born again Christian, which is most likely the reason why they put him in. If you remember, in 2015, 2016 time frame, Fox started giving him hundreds of millions of dollars of free airtime, just covering every sentence of what he said. And they kind of veiled it as, oh, this is what the people want to see. It gets us ratings. But we know that if the people want to see something that's good for us, then corporate media isn't going to show you that person. And they're only going to show you that person if it's in their interest. And now we can see the connections to all of the power brokers that seem to be controlling things from behind the scenes. And some of the people have changed from the Biden administration, but not much has changed, really. He's got new people in. You see new faces. But at the end of the day, a lot of the things that it seems like he's doing just has an ulterior motive to it. Even the stuff, mentioning Greenland and mentioning Venezuela and all this stuff, the globalists have had a plan for a North American Union for decades and decades, probably like 50 years. And so when you see a map of what he is probably halfway jokingly calling the new America, where it spans all the way up and includes all of Canada, the 51st state, all of that stuff is just stuff that the globalists have been wanting. So whoever is in his ear, they're giving him a spin on whatever he's supposed to say, and he goes along with it if it sounds, decent or it sounds smart, or he thinks that the populist movement will be on board with it. But I've found 80% of anything that he does that's good, there's always some background ulterior motive there, and it's not actually good for us. So it's just a reminder that you're not here for politics. You're not here to fight over man-made governments. You're not here to argue about borders on a country that's not really yours. You're here to win citizens to a kingdom that isn't here yet. That's what we should be thinking about, not really the government side of it. But the government side does point to a lot of places. It drives you to that conclusion, so I kind of get a kick out of it. I've watched politics just for a hobby for years and years, and so I still have the dying remnant of that urge inside of me. Most of it is done through InfoWars, which has way better headlines. Because you go to Google, you go to Fox News. So Fox News, run by the intelligence agencies, it's run by the CIA, it's run by the Zionists, it's run by Big Pharma. All these people have basically conglomerated together to push their interests, and Fox is there to kind of absorb the right, absorb the conservative base, whereas the other ones, when you're viewing something like CNN and you're seeing crazy headlines and you're hearing people say stuff, you really have to picture them talking not to you, but to foreigners, to obviously their lefty puppets and stuff, but they want people in the other countries to watch our news and think, wow, they're going crazy. Even the news people think the conservatives and think the Christians and think the right is bananas. And that's how if you turn on CNN right now, it's just another world. They're just living in this alternate parallel universe. And I just find, you can go on CNN, it's obviously crazy. You go to Fox News, it seems a little better. But Fox News caved during COVID, did push the lockdowns, push the shots. Fox News caved during the election. I watched them shut down ballot sites and shut down voting sites and then cram ballots through a computer. And I'm watching it on InfoWars because people are recording it, and then you go to Fox News, CNN, and nobody's playing it, and then the next day everyone's acting like, what are you talking about? Stolen election, there's no evidence, blah, blah, blah. So when you see news things, they can give you some, like rat food. It's got 95% good food in it. They could sit there and feed you good food all day, but it's in a crisis that you really get to know these news agencies and who they're working for, and whether it's COVID or the riots or whatever else, you can see who is basically pushing an ulterior agenda that isn't in favor of you, but it's in favor of people who are bent on controlling you. And we know slavery is the most profitable industry in the world. So you have a couple different segments of slavery, one of which is labor, but you also have the organ trade, you also have the sex trade. These are all pillars of slavery. But slavery itself, being able to control another human being and not just the exchange medium, not just the goods and services, it's more profitable than anything else. So we have to assume that anybody that's plotting against us or collecting power and consolidating, we have to understand that their goal is that. It's never just to get a little bit of money from us. Their goal is always to control, it's always to eliminate competition. And we are competition to them. And so they've basically consolidated their power behind these news networks, and we have some independent alternatives, but they're under attack, they're getting shut down, they're having lawfare waged against them, things like that. So it just makes it to where, they can shut the lights off at any moment. But I I don't know if Fox would be covering this. Maybe they would, but they'll cover it from a different angle. CNN and Fox News would probably both approach it from the perspective of, what are the ramifications of this? Not, oh my gosh, this is crazy. What if it goes global? It's more of like, well, we have to be concerned over a few things, but here's the good about it, and then they just kind of move on. And people really don't realize that once they get a central bank digital currency in, once they get a world ID, and once they have drones out there, then it's over. It's basically it's basically a digital prison at that point. So. And that's understandable. It's not something to be scared of. I always say, don't be scared, be prepared. We're told that it's going to go that direction. When you read Revelation, when you read what the world looks like, and it shows you the end goal of that, and what it looks like from God's perspective in that period, then you have to be able to see what it looks like around you now, and figure out the variables that have to change on the way to get to that end goal. And you can do that with a lot of stuff and make pretty accurate predictions. We can predict, for instance, that they're going to have some type of system that can track and control things. And why? Because Revelation mentions that the Antichrist power and jurisdiction spans the whole globe, every tongue, every nation. It's borderless. It has the power to execute you if you don't sign on, if you don't at least take the number, take the mark, or take his name. And we see also an allegiance, like a religious system, attached to the financial system, which we almost never do. We see that in some Islamic countries and things where you have to pay the, I think it's called the jizya or whatever. You have to pay some tax if you're not a Muslim. But I know what they plan to do here, and it's basically just a repeat of a lot of the things that happened around the 30s and 40s time frame. But so you can see how they have these, apparently they have these drones now, and I know a company like Boston Dynamics or some of these other DARPA front groups will build the robotics, and then they'll put a veil of free market capitalists, so we kind of accept it. People like Elon Musk, people that are pushing the technocracy, but they're doing it from like a free market capitalist perspective, so that way we don't resist it. And they just they get somebody popular like Musk and then just put his face on everything. When really he's not running anything. Maybe he has some managerial duties, but he's not running the whole thing. He's basically a face. He's a PR. Like, his face is valuable to him. It's not his management capabilities. It's his ability to monopolize and to basically put a face on it and go do interviews, machine brain interface and driverless cars and digital currency. I mean, he's basically doing everything that the technocrats want, and just kind of veiling it in this pseudo-conservatism where, he purchases X and fronts like he's setting it up for free speech and all that stuff. But I know so many creators and content producers that are still banned on there, and I know every single one of them, it's basically because they're across that line of what I know the stuff that's light and kind of milquetoast, and okay, they'll get let back on X, but the people that are actually going ham on some of the things and not letting go of the little things, they're not allowed back on there. They're still censored. X is registered as a bank. They actually have a plan to absorb a good chunk of the population. Anybody that doesn't go into BRICS or FedNow, they have a plan to roll it out as a digital banking system, and their goal is to basically have all payment processing run through that. They won't accomplish it because there's other competing networks. One of them is BRICS, which is totally foreign, and if you absorb into that, you're basically just signing on for a foreign invasion, because that's an economic alliance that's going to turn into an invasion force pretty soon. But we're not quite there yet, but we're on the way there, and Trump is basically unwittingly helping them along by turning everyone, including the EU, Canada, all of them. The globalists for 100 years have had plans to unite China and Russia and all of the world, and basically unleash a trade embargo on us and then shut down our power, take over communication. They want to do a blackout on the internet, and you won't be able to get back on without your ID. And this is, I don't know if it's going to be in the next year, next 3 years. I'm not sure. COVID was definitely a plan for that. They've actually admitted that now. They've admitted that COVID was a drill to basically test people's willingness to go along with different things. And they got a whole litany of different agendas through during that, the guise of a pandemic. So I'm just going to keep scrolling here and look for some other news here. So we got the Epstein thing, that good. It's funny because I've listened to Alex Jones for like 10 years, and he was telling us about Epstein literally like 10 years ago. Since I was younger, I really got on it like maybe 3 or 4 years before I met my wife. But he was telling us about Epstein years ago. He said he had a blackmail operation run out of some island and all that, and now all this stuff's coming out. But usually if you have anybody tied to blackmail and anything about them and their lists or them and the information, if that's being pumped out to your news, if you're hearing about it on your TV every single day, it's mostly, and this also happened right before COVID. If you remember in 2019, Jeffrey Epstein, the list, all of that stuff, he actually died right before that, allegedly. 60% chance that he's still alive. And I know that might sound crazy, but as time goes on, you might see that sussed out. But yeah, 2019, they had this stuff was all over the news, and then by the end of 2019, January 2020, COVID started. And usually the crisis like that, there's people involved that are basically suspended with this blackmail capital against them, and the stuff gets pumped in the news right before the crisis goes live because they need to do what they're supposed to do. And so it's on the TV, so that way it's all they're thinking about. And usually within a few months or a period of time after that, whatever crisis starts, and then that was what it was for. And so we saw that with COVID and a lot of the George Floyd stuff, and it's very possible that we're seeing that right now. So Epstein got European enablers prepare for direct talks with Putin over war. Yeah. Every single time I go to this, every time I come to the news, every time I read over it, it just seems so pointless. Like every minute I spend talking about politics is basically spiritual information that didn't get said, or a soul that didn't get saved because I'm doing something else. So I really just want to focus on the spiritual. I honestly don't know how often I'm gonna do news. Certain things come up, okay. I used to be absolutely obsessed with this kind of thing, and at the end of it, I just feel empty. I feel like I didn't accomplish anything. And I don't like that feeling. I like the feeling of getting through something biblical, getting through. So one thing I will say though, news sources, the Bible has been the number one news source for me. And that is simply because it gives a bird's eye view. It tells me what Revelation is going to look like, and it tells me the contents of the human mind and the human character and the human propensity for evil. And I know that any variation, any form of dissension in what you can do with your body, what you can do to other people, or what you can do with land or animals, any of that stuff is something that people will do. If it's a possibility, there are people that will do it just for the sake of it. So I kind of just assume that. I assume that any extreme that can be formed will be found, and I also assume that those forces and those people and those beings that end up doing that stuff will eventually consolidate their power of like minds. And if we get to a point to where the devil is basically able to come in the flesh and run a kingdom here for 3.5 years. I mean, the tribulation is 7 years, but the second half of the tribulation is really the time of the devil having his kingdom here. The first half of the tribulation will be the two witnesses and their ministry. As soon as the rapture happens, two witnesses are on the scene. They're preaching from Israel. They're saying the truth. The Bible says the Antichrist blasphemes God, and it says the two witnesses are basically going to be preaching to the world. And the Antichrist isn't going to have his full kingdom yet, but he's going to be speaking against them. And then halfway through, 3.5 years in, he stands in the temple and declares himself God to the world. And the two witnesses are killed. They lay dead in the street in Israel for 3 days. And then the world celebrates. Everyone that is listening to the beast and listening to his world government, and whatever new religion they decide to roll out, they celebrate. The Bible says they give each other gifts. They are so happy that these two guys that tormented them with the truth are gone. And then 3 days into that, after laying dead in the street, nobody even takes their body away. 3 days in, their body arises alive and then goes straight into the sky. And then the fear grips the people on earth because they realize we just we just killed them. They were saying this, and now they just go up into the sky. And then the Antichrist unleashes, and for 3.5 years, basically, the world, goes into the completion of what Revelation is. Revelation 17 includes the fall of Mystery Babylon. There's a couple things in Revelation, and it jumps around, and so it's not like you're reading the entire book and it's going sequentially. There are a segment where it says some things, and then there's another segment where it might zoom out, or it might go and focus on something else, or give it from a different angle. So I really want to get into Revelation. I want to study it. Daniel's the key to Revelation. If you haven't read Daniel, I would suggest, if you read Revelation without Daniel, you're going to be really confused, because Revelation has basically images of beasts and just analogies that it doesn't explain. You're not going to understand them if you don't actually know what it's talking about. In Daniel, it does the same thing with the animals and the beasts and all that, except it doesn't just not give you answers. As it's going, it says, and the beasts you see are this, and they are this. And when you get to Revelation, it doesn't explain it. It's expecting you to have already read Daniel. And so when you read Daniel, it basically can open your perspective on what the beasts are, the nations, the kingdoms that it's representing, and how they show a timeline in history of the countries that ruled over Israel. And we're in this last stage now where we're coming to a completion of the program here, and the next step is going to be the 7-year tribulation. So it's kind of exciting to be born into this time where we're not, we could have been born in the 1910s, the 1850s, the 1650, like there's so many time periods where we didn't have running water and communication, and now we have the Bible, now we have the internet, we can cross-reference things. I mean, we were so lucky to be born into possibly the greatest time in human history. And I guess we'll see in the next 5 years if it goes to crap, then I might change my mind, but I don't expect to. And I'd really like to also get into the rapture eventually. I want to do a full breakdown on why I personally believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, and why I don't want to operate off of any perspective of doom and gloom. The Bible says that we should comfort people with the words in the Bible. The Bible says that when you start to see these things, look up, your redemption draws nigh. And I got a list on here. It's in the post section of 16 reasons or 16 evidences for a pre-tribulation rapture. There are more. I've got a list in my own phone, and they're not in here. I didn't add them, but I plan to eventually. And I suggest you read through this every once in a while, especially if you see news stuff start to get heated and you're worried about anything like that. This stuff will really kind of just calm you and just inspire you to just go and try to win as many souls as possible before that time period, because that's basically what I've been led to do, and I just have an obsession with it. When I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking, how can I get something out or put something out? I want to just replace my hobbies with this. I want to replace my free time with this, and I think it'll just be way more productive. And everyone else too, if we're able to. I know everyone's busy and things, but when you do see stuff like this, if you're able to share it, or maybe not even share it on your page, just show it to somebody. Just one time in a week. Just maybe have somebody, hey, check this out. It would be great just to get some eyeballs on it. And even if they're not going to join anything, we want born again Christians here. But man, if some non-Christians, especially younger people, if they're in that stage where they're about to come into that age of accountability and they're about to make that decision for themselves, 16, 17, 18, all the way up to 20, 22, I would be trying to get this information in front of them as much as I can. And my daughter's 9 years old. I show her some bits, but a lot of it she can't understand. But I love watching her eyes light up, or just pause on something and take something in whenever she's really thinking about the angles that I put on it when I'm speaking to her. Because when I talk to her, I try to give her the bird's eye view, and then wrap it up with our view, and let them kind of synchnocratically work together. And she's very smart. And I think one of the differences between her and the kids at her school is the fact that she's maintaining these multiple streams of thought. When she's thinking about a person, I've hammered the idea that her body is a model of a country, and it's a model of a cell. She understands the different portions of a body and the different parallels between a country, and it gives you multi-dimensional thinking. It's literally thinking extra dimensionally. That's what that is. And so that's what I want to help people do. That's why I started this, is to basically document as many of those as I can, and I'm having a blast doing it. So I think that's it. I appreciate everybody listening. I'm going to come back in about 2 weeks and probably do another one. I'll be recording these every 2 weeks. Seems like something I can keep up with. I'd also like to do the Bible studies, so if I get on with somebody else, or if anybody wants to join those, reach out to me or just come on. We'll try to have them on a set date so where you can join in randomly. And if you ever see us live on there, it pops up right here when you come to the main page. So this is a new course section in 26 minutes. This is the update right now because we have that going on. But usually if you come here, if somebody's live, it'll have a big red circle right here, and you'll know that we're on. If you see us on there and you just want to hop on, you don't have to have your webcam, you don't have to text or anything. If you just want to join to watch, you can. Or if you come on with your webcam, make it a party, that's awesome too. So thank you to everybody that's joined. Thank you to everybody if you're following along. I appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Take care.